Welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to talk about INTJ Youth and their unlimited potential. This is a topic that has troubled me in various ways for decades, long before I ever knew there was such a thing as an INTJ. I knew I had been robbed of what I could have done with my life by the setting I was born into and the way I was raised. By the time I figured that out, my life had been set like hardened concrete. Also, by then, there were things far too precious to me to give up, to simply chuck it all out and start over again. However, it is time for this sort of thing to change. Today we have a very great opportunity to shape the future in incredibly positive ways. The INTJ personality type combines the following strengths in a unique way. First off, we have introverted intuition. We can process massive amounts of data and shape it into useful patterns that can be applied to the outside world. Next, we have extroverted thinking, which provides the perfect method for transferring our ideas into physical reality. This combination is extremely powerful. We also have the advantage, which many people think of incorrectly as a disadvantage, of suppressing distractions, so we can truly and very deeply focus on what we are doing. Our feeling function is buried inside of us. It is also introverted, so it is directed inwardly and not outwardly. If necessary, we can cut ourselves off like Zarathustra and focus our minds entirely on our preferred task and get along on our own. Even if we don't go that far, we can disconnect from emotional distractions and move forward with what we are working on. We don't care. It doesn't matter to us that you are wrong. We just ignore you. No problem. Emotions are far less likely to get in the way of an INTJ than with most other types. And our sensing function is all the way on the bottom. However, it is extroverted, which can help us when we need to examine directly what is going on around us. As a package, an INTJ has the potential to literally change the world. Creative ideas effectively applied to the outside world without getting tangled up with distractions. It is an amazing combination. So, you might wonder, why haven't we done more over the centuries? Think about the atom. Throughout all of time, the atom has continued to be as it is, unchanging. It carries great power with it, but we didn't realize it. It still had the power despite our ignorance. But once we figured it out, suddenly it became useful and a source of incredible power. Of course, our existence is dependent upon nuclear power, for the sun is driven by fusion. The power of the atom gave us life and continues to support us as we live. When an unstable atom is placed in close proximity to other similar atoms, a critical mass can be achieved where the fission of one atom can trigger the fission of others in a chain reaction. This is what drives our nuclear power plants. This property was always there throughout all of time, and yet we only now know how to use it. That is a great example of what can happen when potential power is not perceived or understood. I submit to you that the INTJ mind is quite similar in its potential and in the way it has been largely ignored. A people might live right next to a river for centuries, and other than fishing and avoiding flooding, not even give it much thought. But if they put a dam across the river, it will create huge hydraulic forces from the large mass of water that is trapped behind the dam, and that high-pressure water can then be used to drive generators, which will create electric power. They can ignore the river and live in the dark, or they can have electric power and have all that goes with it. You probably have noticed the large number of popular movies today about mutants and people with superpowers. People who are born very gifted, but who are different and not accepted, make for entertaining movies. But it can also be a painful way to live when you were born an INTJ. You may end up wasting those critical years when you could be sharpening up your superpowers, as it were. But instead you spend your time dodging insults and well-intentioned pushes to make you conform to what the other kids are like. There is a scene in the movie The Avengers that is closely connected with this point. There are two geniuses in the scene, Bruce Banner and Tony Stark, and they had just met for the first time. Banner said that if what Stark had suggested were true, it would allow heavy ion fusion to occur in any reactor on the planet. Stark replied, "Finally, someone who speaks English." Bringing such minds together is very much like a nuclear pile achieving critical mass. But for INTJs, we have lived through the centuries without this happening very often. We are so rare that in the times dominated by rural life, we might never see another INTJ, or at best run into only a handful of them in our entire lives. And being introverted, even if we saw one, we might not connect. In other words, it was like the atom, which always had the power, but no one ever knew. An INTJ tends to do one thing. He can do it amazingly well, but he is very focused. This is why interconnecting INTJs is so important. One INTJ can provide one piece of a puzzle, while another will supply a different piece. A dozen INTJs will bring a dozen amazing ideas to the table, and perhaps another INTJ will then take the entire set of pieces and pull it all together. Think of the possibilities. Depending upon your age, you might have trouble grasping how difficult it was to get information when I was young. Reading an encyclopedia was a tedious process. I purchased my first one, an Encyclopedia Britannica, in 1972. I spent a lot of time reading it, but following a trail of ideas was very cumbersome and slow. Today, an INTJ can hit 10 things in the time it would have taken me back then to nail down one. And trying to go deeper with an encyclopedia would only take you so far. You had to physically go to the library in order to even find what you were looking for. Maybe. Online, you can download books or locate articles almost instantly. Feeding your introverted intuition is a piece of cake today compared with how it was when I was young. I naturally developed a love for libraries, and last night my wife and granddaughter were watching a movie together, and in the movie a huge library was shown, and both of them immediately agreed that Grandpa would have loved that room. They know me well. I should mention online courses here. Seriously, you can go to school in your office and get a degree. You can even take courses for fun that you are interested in. This is so cool, I can hardly believe it. The walls are coming down and information is everywhere. I love it. Not only has the internet brought massive amounts of information to us, but it has also made the achievement of INTJ critical mass quite possible. We now can find out that there are other INTJs. We see that we are not unique, even though we are rare. Another plus is the fact that we can communicate openly and freely without actual personal presence being required. This is important because we usually don't just jump into conversations with strangers. The isolation provided by electronic communication is right up our alley. Best of all, the young people are most likely to be connected electronically, and INTJs are almost always tech savvy. As I'm sure you can see, this opens the door to something that never was possible before. Young INTJs can connect, and for the first time in history, a generation of INTJs, at least potentially, can bypass the roadblocks that society has placed in their way. Young INTJs don't have to just struggle to survive. They can connect and learn to thrive. Even their parents now have the opportunity to be educated about how truly gifted their children are and can learn to encourage them rather than trying to cripple them. Just think of it. Today, a young INTJ can go online and soon find others like himself and say, "Finally, someone who speaks my language." If we take the unnecessary struggle out of childhood and replace it with nurturing and understanding, and combine that with interaction with others like himself, an INTJ can truly reach his full potential. The time has finally arrived when an INTJ youth won't have to hide from others as a nerdy outcast, but can connect with others to create a group at critical mass, and as such, shine like a newborn star. The INTJ potential is truly unlimited, and this is the time when it could be, and it should be, realized. If you enjoyed the video, please click like. And if you haven't subscribed, please do so. I'll see you next time.